Hello and welcome to the JSA studio. I am your host, as always, Nathan, and today we're going to be talking about what is arguably Michigan's best position group, or at least the position group where they have the most depth, and that is the offensive line. So let's go ahead and jump right into what I believe will be the starting tackles for the University of Michigan in 2023. That'll be Ladarius Henderson at the left tackle position and Carson Barnhart at the right tackle position. Now, at the next level, Henderson is likely a guard, not a tackle. He does have experience at guard, but for this year at Michigan, I do believe he will be playing left tackle. When you watch him on film, it's quite evident, really, the first snap you see him play, that this dude is a good athlete, for the position at least. He has long enough arms, has a good base, functional leg strength, and the mentality that you want in an offensive lineman. He will go and find work in the passing game. He won't just stand there and do nothing when he's uncovered, that is. And he has the mass and requisite core strength to take on bull rushes effectively. Where he gets in trouble is with pure speed off the edge, as well as in the run game. He does have some problems straight up moving people that aren't smaller than him. I think that's likely due to suboptimal upper body strength. Now, I think Michigan can work on that a little bit, but he's probably going to have to spend more time in the NFL working on that than anything else, in my opinion. As far as Carson Barnhart goes, technically sound, plays the position well, is versatile. He's played left tackle and right tackle last year, and in a pinch he could do both for you this year. But this year I think he's going to stay at right tackle and start. Good player. Right now he's a little bit better in the pass game than the run game, although I do think he will improve at both. Sometimes he did struggle with power last year, though not that much. When it comes to really any of these returning players on this offensive line, any criticism is going to be a little bit nitpicky because this was, according to experts, the best offensive line in college football this past year, and they're returning 3 out of 5 starters, while the other 2 got drafted on day 3. Now, the backup tackles are really, really good too. I believe that both Myles Hinton and Trente Jones would be starters on about 80 to 90% of Power 5 programs right now, and they're Michigan's backups. So we're sitting pretty at the tackle position, at least for the next 2 years. Myles Hinton is a very good athlete. He was, I believe, a 5-star prospect. It was either him or his brother, Chris. I don't remember which one was the 5-star and which one was the 4-star. Trente Jones played really, really well before he got hurt. Came back, and Carson Barnhart had taken his job at right tackle. And that's really the reason why I have Barnhart starting over Trente Jones. I think it's quite possible that Trente Jones is a better player than Carson Barnhart. He is certainly a better NFL prospect than Carson Barnhart. But I also think a contributing factor is going to be that I believe Trente Jones has 1 more year of eligibility left, as does Myles Hinton. And I think Carson Barnhart and Ladarius Henderson are out of eligibility after this year. So those 2 guys are likely to start, in my opinion. Jim Harbaugh does tend to favor seniors more than potentially the player who is a little bit better than the senior. And that's my main rationale as to why I believe the starting tackles are going to be the starting tackles and why the backup tackles are going to be the backup tackles. Could be completely wrong. It could be completely flipped for all I know. Myles Hinton may win the left tackle job just because he's better than Ladarius Henderson. Who knows? I don't think it's unlikely, but it is probably not going to happen. Now, for the interior offensive line, I think there is a little bit less controversy going on just because I don't think the backups are quite as good as these starting 3 guys. Trevor Keegan likely to take the spot at left guard. Drake Nugent is likely going to be the center, and Zach Zinter is going to be the right guard. Keegan and Zinter, we already know they're arguably the 2 best guards in the Big Ten this year. Donovan Jackson is in there as well, and Nugent might be the best center in the Big Ten as well. I think Olu was last year, and I think Nugent might actually be better than him. I get that Olu won all of the awards and everything, but I think it was a little bit undeserved. I think there were better centers in college football last year than Oluwatimi, but Nugent, I think, legitimately could be a contender for all of those awards. He doesn't have the national hype behind him, but I believe he should be in that conversation. Now, Trevor Keegan, as far as playing wise, really good all around player. Doesn't really have any weaknesses as a prospect, but he also doesn't really have any strengths. Because of that, he really seems to me like a quality depth piece at the next level rather than a consistent starter. Zach Zinner, I think, is the opposite of that. This guy exceeds on gap, power, run plays, sometimes gets beat by quicker defensive tackles along the interior, but he has the athleticism and strength to make up for that. Zinter, I think, is probably the best prospect out of all three of these guys. Now, Drake Nugent might be the best run blocker out of all of these 5 offensive linemen that I have projected as starters, but he's also probably the worst pass blocker. He's given up, or he's credited with giving up 4 sacks in each of the past 2 seasons. And as a center, it's pretty hard to give up consistent pressure that could lead to sacks or quarterback hits. Because more often than not, the person that the center is going to be blocking is going to get double teamed with the center by a guard on either side of him. So that's a little bit concerning. Now, 4 sacks is nothing really to get all that worked up about, and JJ is a much better athlete than the quarterbacks that were playing at Stanford these past 2 years. So probably a lesser concern there than it would have been if he had gone to a place with a quarterback not as athletic as JJ. As far as who's going to be backing those 3 up, I believe Giovanni El Hadi will be the primary backup at either guard position, left or right guard, if something were to happen to Keegan or Zenter. But if something were to happen to both of them, I think the next most likely scenario is that Ladarius Henderson would come in and play left guard with Giovanni El Hadi playing right guard, and Miles Hinton coming off the bench to play left tackle. I think that's a likely option. Or if the tackle depth is also under attack and we need 2 new guards or something like that, I think the next option would probably be Trente Jones going to right guard and Giovanni El Hadi at left guard. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I do think I also think it's fairly likely that Trente Jones at the next level is also a guard, though I do think he has the athleticism to remain as a tackle at the next level. He might end up projecting better as a guard. El Hadi is somebody that has a lot of potential. I think he would probably start on maybe every other team in the Big Ten except potentially Ohio State. I think he's a fantastic football player, and I think he's going to be a future day 2 draft pick for the University of Michigan. Next thing that I want to do here is I want to quickly mention some youngins. Young guys that I will probably be future starters in my opinion, and that's going to be starting off with 2 centers who are going to be battling for the backup position if something were to happen to Drake Nugent. And those 2 are Greg Crippen and Raheem. Now, surprisingly, there isn't a whole lot of information out there about Michigan's backup center position battle, but if I had to guess just based off of the little bit of information that is out there, I think Raheem Anderson is leading that battle right now. The next 2 guys that I want to talk about are true freshman Amir Henning, likely to be redshirted, and redshirt freshman Andrew Gentry. Both of these guys are going to be competing for a starting guard spot next year, assuming Michigan doesn't go into the transfer portal again. And the last one that I want to talk about is another true freshman in Evan Link, who was one of the highest rated recruits we had in this past recruiting cycle. I believe he is a future starter at either tackle position as well. So potential awards and accolades that this group could get. Ladarius Henderson as a guard has first round potential in my mind. Last year, before he decided to enter the transfer portal, I believed he was going to declare for the draft, and I thought that he was going to be probably a top 40 pick, or at least he was a top 40 grade, in my opinion. He was my second guard in the whole class behind Avila, the kid from TCU. And I was a little bit surprised when he decided to come back, and a little bit even more surprised when he decided to transfer to Michigan to play left tackle. Trevor Keegan is likely to be something between a third and a fifth round draft pick. If he does improve, I could see him being a third round draft pick. If he went out last year, he was probably going to go in the middle of day 3, in my opinion. Drake Nugent, I think, is probably a day 2 draft pick and a day 1 starter in the NFL. He's also a contender for the Remington Award, which is the award given to the best center in college football. Zach Zinner is a day 2 draft pick, likely going to end up with a top 50 grade from me, which means he's probably going to go in the second round. Carson Barnhart is either a late day 3 or a priority undrafted free agent. Trente Jones, Miles Hinton, Giovanni El Hadi are all starters next year waiting in the wings. Michigan will be replacing all 5 of their offensive linemen, likely all 5 of their offensive linemen after this year, because all 5 of them have a real chance at getting drafted. I think 4 of them are effectively locks, and Carson Barnhart could get drafted in the later rounds in 2024. I also believe Trente Jones, Miles Hinton, and Giovanni El Hadi are all draftable prospects as well, but they need another year to really get to the draft. Those are more 2025 guys rather than 2024. As far as the Joe Moore Award goes, real quick, I want to talk about these past 2 years. Each of these past 2 years, I thought the University of Michigan had the second best offensive line in college football. 2 years ago, 2021, I thought Georgia had the best offensive line in college football. Last year, I thought it was Ohio State. This year, I think we're going to have the best offensive line in college football. I really do. That being said, I don't think we're three-peating the Joe Moore Award. I think that's very unlikely. I think it could happen, and it would be absolutely awesome if it did, but it's very, very unlikely. They'll almost certainly be finalists, and then they'll probably lose the award, in my opinion. It's just the optics of giving the award to the same team 3 years in a row isn't great. So they'll probably look to go in a different direction after this year. But that means that in 2024, we're going to be right back to competing for the award. And that is all that I have for you today. Up next, we continue the 2023 Michigan roster breakdown with the defensive line, and that is going to be one hell of a video. Defensive line has some serious depth, and we will discuss it all next time. Go ahead and like the video if you liked. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. If you disagreed with me, let me know down in the comment section below. But let's keep it civil. After all, what do I know? I'm just some asshole, and I'll see you next time.